I stared at the Thanksgiving invitation in my hand, my fingers trembling with a mix of rage and determination. After 2 years of being labelled the family thief, I was finally ready to serve justice. And it wouldn't be with turkey and cranberry sauce. My name is Remington, and the day my stepmother Vanessa destroyed my life started like any other Tuesday at Duncan Enterprises. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office when Dad burst through the door, his face twisted with an anger I'd never seen before. "How could you?" He slammed a stack of papers on my desk. "Your own family?" "Dad, what are you talking about?" "Don't play innocent. Vanessa found the transfers. $500,000, Remington. Siphoned into offshore accounts." I felt the blood drain from my face. "That's impossible. I would never—" "Save it." His voice cracked. "The evidence is right here. Your signatures, your computer access logs, everything." "Those must be forged. Dad, please." I stood up, reaching for him, but he stepped back like I was contaminated. "Security will escort you out. Don't come back. And don't expect an invitation to any family events until you come clean and return every penny." That was the last real conversation I had with my father. Vanessa had played her cards perfectly. The devoted stepmother who'd accidentally discovered the evidence while reviewing company finances. My siblings weren't much better. Flynn avoided my calls, and Thea sent a text that still makes my stomach turn. "How could you do this to Dad after everything he's done for you?" I spent months in a haze of depression and anger until I met Grace at a coffee shop. She overheard me muttering about proving my innocence and mentioned she was a private investigator. That chance encounter changed everything. "Your stepmother's story has more holes than Swiss cheese," Grace said during our first official meeting. "The timing of the transfers, the way the evidence appeared, it's too neat, too convenient. Can you help me prove it?" She smiled, tapping her laptop. "Already started digging, but you should know. This won't be quick or cheap." "I don't care about the money." I leaned forward. "I want my family back. I want Vanessa exposed for what she really is." That was 18 months ago. Now, holding the Thanksgiving invitation Thea reluctantly extended, I knew it was time. Grace had built an airtight case against Vanessa, revealing a web of fraud that went far beyond framing me. My phone buzzed. Speaking of Grace, "Got the final piece," she said without preamble. "Bank records showing Vanessa's original transfers, the ones she used as templates to frame you. You ready for this?" I took a deep breath. "More than ready. Did you send everything to Elijah?" "Your ex-boyfriend, the accountant?" "Yeah, he's reviewing it now. Says the numbers don't lie. Vanessa's going down." I hung up and opened my laptop, staring at the email I'd drafted to my father. The subject line was simple. "The truth about Thanksgiving 2021. My finger hovered over the send button, but I couldn't do it. Not yet. This needed to be done in person, where Vanessa couldn't squirm her way out. My doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the peephole, I saw Thea, shifting nervously on my welcome mat. I hadn't seen her in person since that Tuesday. "Hey," she said when I opened the door. "Can we talk?" She looked smaller somehow, more fragile. I stepped aside to let her in, my heart pounding. "I've been having doubts," she blurted out. "About Vanessa, about everything." "What kind of doubts?" "She's been acting strange lately, secretive. And last week I overheard her on the phone talking about moving money around. It reminded me of, you know." I fought to keep my voice steady. "Are you saying you believe me now?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know what to believe anymore, but I miss my sister. And if there's even a chance we were wrong," I wanted to hug her, to tell her everything would be okay. Instead, I said, "Come to Thanksgiving dinner. Watch what happens. That's all I'm asking." She wiped her eyes and nodded. "Flynn might be willing to listen too. He's been asking questions about the company finances." As I watched her leave, I felt a surge of something beyond revenge. Hope. In 3 days, I would walk into my family's home with a briefcase full of evidence and a heart full of justified fury. Vanessa thought she'd written the end of my story that Tuesday. She had no idea she'd only written the beginning. I picked up my phone and texted Grace. It's time. Let's finish this. Grace's office looked exactly like you'd expect a private investigator's workspace to look. Organized chaos of papers, multiple monitors, and enough coffee cups to fuel an army. I watched as she pulled up file after file on her largest screen. Your stepmother's been busy, Grace said, clicking through documents. Look at this pattern of transactions. Every third Friday, like clockwork, money moves from Duncan Enterprises to shell companies in the Cayman Islands. The same way she framed me? Similar but sloppier. She's getting confident, making mistakes. Grace pointed to a series of numbers. These transfers started 6 months before she accused you. Classic setup. My phone buzzed. Elijah calling. I put him on speaker. Rem, you're not going to believe this, he said, his accountant's precision mixing with obvious excitement. I cross-referenced those shell companies Grace found. Guess who owns the majority stake in Pacific Ridge Development? Pacific Ridge. I leaned closer to the phone. Our biggest competitor? Bingo. And guess when they acquired that massive contract we lost last year? 2 weeks after I was forced out, I whispered, the pieces clicking into place. Exactly. Vanessa didn't just frame you. She's been actively sabotaging the company, making millions on both ends. Grace was already typing. I can prove the connection. Give me an hour. I spent that hour pacing, making calls and building our case. My hands shook as I dialed Flynn's number, remembering Thea's words about him asking questions. He answered on the 4th ring. This better be important, Rem. Remember that Pacific Ridge deal? The one that made no sense? A pause. What about it? I need you to look at some numbers. Quietly. Without telling anyone. Especially Vanessa. Rem? He sighed. I can't get involved in your vendetta. It's not a vendetta when I can prove everything. Please, Flynn. You're head of operations. You know something's wrong with the company's finances. Another pause. Longer this time. Send them to my personal email. I'm not promising anything. Grace printed everything we had. Bank statements, transfer records, ownership documents. The stack of papers grew until it filled an entire briefcase. Your stepmother's going to try to discredit these, Grace warned. We need backup copies, witnesses, everything bulletproof. Already on it, Elijah said, walking through the door with his own stack of papers. I called in a favor from my firm's forensic accounting team. They've authenticated everything. Seeing him again still felt strange. We'd ended things when work got complicated, before Vanessa showed up. Now here he was, helping me take her down. Why are you doing this? I asked him quietly while Grace made copies. Because I knew you back then. Knew how much the company meant to you. The Remington I knew would never steal from her family. My phone buzzed again, a text from Thea. V asking questions about you. Says you might try something at Thanksgiving. Be careful. She's getting nervous, Grace said, reading over my shoulder. Good. Nervous people make mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, Elijah pointed at his laptop screen. Look what I found in the company's archived emails. It was an email chain between Vanessa and someone at Pacific Ridge, dated 3 weeks before she accused me of theft. They were discussing removing obstacles and consolidating power. This is it, Grace said. The smoking gun. She planned everything. There's more, Elijah continued typing. Remember Corey, the family lawyer? His signature is on some very interesting documents. Corey? But he's been with the family forever. And he's been helping Vanessa hide money for at least 2 years. Probably getting a cut. I sank into a chair, overwhelmed. My father trusted them both completely. That's why it worked, Grace said gently. The best cons always come from people you trust. We spent the next 3 hours organizing evidence, making copies and planning our approach. Flynn texted back. Just reviewed everything. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Carter's Diner. It's happening, I told Grace and Elijah. Everything's finally coming together. Remember, Grace cautioned, Vanessa's cornered. That makes her dangerous. Watch your back until Thanksgiving. I nodded, clutching the briefcase. 2 days until Thanksgiving. 2 days until I could reclaim my life, my family, my reputation. As I left Grace's office, another text came through from an unknown number. Back off now, or what happens next is your fault. Last warning. I showed it to Grace, who was walking me to my car. Save it, she said grimly. Add it to the evidence. And Rem, don't go anywhere alone until Thursday. I drove home in the dark, checking my rearview mirror at every turn. The briefcase sat heavy on my passenger seat. 2 years of work, proof of betrayal, and my ticket back to everything I'd lost. Tomorrow I'd meet Flynn. Then, Thanksgiving dinner would become a very different kind of family reunion. Carter's diner was nearly empty at 7:55 a.m. I slid into a booth near the back, positioning myself to watch the door. Flynn arrived exactly on time, looking exhausted and carrying a thick manila envelope. You look like hell, I said as he sat down. Spent all night going through company records. He rubbed his eyes. Why didn't I see it before? Because you weren't looking for it. None of us were. The waitress brought coffee. Flynn waited until she left before opening his envelope. The Pacific Ridge connection was just the beginning, he said, spreading papers across the table. Look at these equipment purchases from last year. We paid triple market rate through shell companies that all trace back to Vanessa, I finished. And Corey. They've been bleeding the company dry. Flynn's hands shook as he lifted his coffee. Dad's retirement fund, the expansion plans, everything we've worked for, it's all at risk. That's why I need your help on Thursday. It's not that simple, Rem. Vanessa's got dirt on everyone. Last night she hinted she knows about my gambling problem from college. The one you got help for 10 years ago? That's nothing compared to what she's done. Maybe not, but... Flynn's phone buzzed. His face went pale reading the message. What is it? Someone broke into my office last night, files missing. She knows we're talking. I pulled out my phone to call Grace, but Flynn grabbed my wrist. Wait, there's something else you need to know first. About Mom's old shares in the company. Before he could continue, the diner's door chimed. Elijah walked in looking urgent. I'd texted him the location as backup just in case. We've got trouble, he said, sliding into the booth. Vanessa's called an emergency board meeting for Wednesday. She's trying to push through some kind of restructuring before Thanksgiving. Flynn swore under his breath. She's going to transfer everything to the offshore accounts. Once that happens... It won't, I cut in, because we're going to stop her, together. Count me in, a voice said. We all turned to see Thea standing by our table, her face set with determination. I followed Flynn here, and I want to help. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Flynn pulled out his phone. I'm calling Dad, he said. He needs to know... Not yet, I interrupted. Vanessa watches him too closely. One wrong move and she'll destroy everything before we can prove it. She's right, Elijah said. We need to present everything at once when she can't spin it or hide it. Thea sat down next to me, her eyes filling with tears. I'm so sorry, Rem, for not believing you. For everything. Later, I said, squeezing her hand. Right now, we need to focus. We spent the next hour planning. Flynn would stall the board meeting. Thea would distract Vanessa, while Elijah and I recovered the stolen files. Grace would finish documenting the money trail. As we wrapped up, my phone rang. Grace again. You need to see this, she said without preamble. Remember that anonymous tip about company sabotage? I traced it. It came from Corey's office. The family lawyer? Why would he? Because he's having second thoughts. Just got an email from him wanting to meet. Says he has proof of Vanessa's original plan. I looked at my siblings and Elijah. Change of plans. We're meeting Corey first. Be careful, Flynn warned. This could be a trap. That's why you're all coming with me. I stood up. Strength in numbers. We left the diner separately to avoid attention. As I walked to my car, I noticed a black SUV with tinted windows parked across the street. The engine started as I reached for my keys. Get in, Elijah said, appearing beside me. You're not driving alone. The SUV pulled out, following us as Elijah navigated through side streets. Call Grace, I told him. Tell her to meet us at the backup location. And Flynn? I turned to look at my brother in the back seat. Those Mom's shares you mentioned, What about them? They're supposed to be split between us kids, he said. But Vanessa convinced Dad to delay the transfer, said it was for tax purposes. More like control purposes, Thea added bitterly. Keep us dependent on her goodwill. Elijah made a sharp turn, losing our tail. Corey would have handled those share transfers. If he's really willing to talk, then we might have everything we need, I finished. The whole picture, finally. We drove in tense silence, each lost in thoughts of betrayal and justice. Tomorrow we'd meet Corey. The next day was the board meeting, then Thanksgiving. The end game was approaching faster than any of us had planned, but for the first time in 2 years, I wasn't facing it alone. The backup location turned out to be an old storage unit Grace used for sensitive meetings. Corey was already there when we arrived, pacing nervously between stacks of boxes. You brought the whole cavalry, he said, eyeing my siblings and Elijah. Start talking, I replied coldly. Why help Vanessa frame me? He pulled out a USB drive. Because she had leverage, still does. But this... He held up the drive. This is my insurance policy, and now it's yours. Grace plugged the drive into her laptop. Documents filled the screen. Emails, contracts, photos. 2 years of carefully documented betrayal. She approached me before your mother died, Corey said. Had plans to take over the company. I refused at first, but then she discovered my indiscretions. What kind of indiscretions? Flynn demanded. The kind that cost you your law license, Grace answered, still scanning documents. Misappropriated client funds. She caught you stealing. Corey nodded miserably. She promised to keep quiet if I helped her. It started small. Backdating some documents, hiding some transactions. Then she wanted more. Like framing me, I said. That wasn't the original plan. She wanted to discredit all 3 of you kids, gain complete control, but you were asking too many questions about the Pacific Ridge deal. Thea gasped, pointing at the screen. Is that Dad's signature? Forged, Corey confirmed. Vanessa's been forging his signature on documents for months. The board meeting tomorrow? She's planning to use a forged resolution to transfer everything offshore. My phone buzzed, a text from Dad. Where are you? Vanessa says you're causing trouble. We need to talk. She knows, Elijah said, reading over my shoulder. We need to move fast. Grace was already copying files. These prove everything, the forgeries, the shell companies, even recordings of her threatening Corey. Why come clean now? I asked Corey. Because she's getting sloppy, desperate. Yesterday she threatened my family directly. I've got a grandson now. His voice cracked. Some lines you can't uncross. Suddenly Flynn's phone lit up with alerts. She's moved up the board meeting. It's starting in an hour. That's not possible, Thea protested. The bylaws require 24-hour notice. Unless there's an emergency, Corey interrupted, which she just manufactured. Look. He pulled up a news alert on his phone. Duncan Enterprises' stock was plummeting on rumours of financial irregularities. She's crashing the company's stock to force an emergency meeting, Elijah explained. Once she gets that resolution passed. We're done, I finished. Everything goes offshore. Grace handed me a flash drive. Complete copy of everything. Get to that meeting. I'll handle the rest. Handle what? I asked. Let's just say the SEC and FBI are very interested in Pacific Ridge development. Been building that case for months as backup. We split up fast. Flynn and Thea headed straight to the office. Elijah drove me, while Grace took Corey to meet federal agents. Wait, Corey called as we left. There's one more thing. About your mother's shares. Vanessa didn't just delay the transfer, she destroyed the original documents, but I kept copies in my personal safe. The real ones, with your mother's signature. Where? I demanded. My office. 3rd drawer down, behind the false back. The combination is your mother's birthday. We raced through traffic, my heart pounding. 1 hour to stop Vanessa from destroying everything my family had built. My phone buzzed again. Dad calling. This time I answered. Where are you? He demanded. Vanessa says, Dad, listen carefully, I cut in. Go to Corey's office right now. 3rd drawer, false back. Mum's birthday. You need to see something before the board meeting. What are you talking about? Please, Dad. For once, just trust me. Look in that drawer before you let Vanessa do anything. Silence. Then, you have 15 minutes. Elijah parked illegally outside the office building. Security tried to stop us, but Flynn had already cleared our access. The elevator felt impossibly slow. When it opened on the executive floor, we found chaos. Board members were arriving looking confused and angry. Vanessa stood by the conference room, her perfect mask slipping as she saw me. "You're not welcome here," she started to say. "Actually," my father's voice rang out, "she is." He emerged from Corey's office, holding papers in trembling hands. "Would you like to explain these, Vanessa? The real share transfers? The forged signatures?" Vanessa's face went white. "Tom, I can explain." "Save it for the FBI," Grace said, stepping off the elevator with two suited agents. "They're very interested in hearing all about Pacific Ridge development. I watched my stepmother's perfect world crumble in real time. But this wasn't the end, just the beginning of a very interesting board meeting. And Thanksgiving was still coming. The board meeting lasted 6 hours. By the time it ended, Vanessa had been removed from her position, the FBI had seized company records, and my father looked like he'd aged a decade. "I still can't believe," he kept saying, staring at the evidence spread across the conference table. "All this time." "Dad," I said gently, "we need to talk about tomorrow, about Thanksgiving." He looked up, confused. "Thanksgiving, with everything that's happened? We need it more than ever," Thea interrupted. "The whole family knows about the dinner. If we cancel now, it'll look like we're hiding something," Flynn finished. "The company's stock has already taken a hit. We need to project stability." I watched my father absorb this. The proud man who'd built Duncan Enterprises from nothing, now facing the biggest crisis of his life. "She'll be there," he said quietly. "The FBI released her on bail an hour ago." "Good," I replied, surprising everyone. "Let her come." Later that evening, we gathered at my apartment, me, my siblings, Elijah and Grace, to plan the final act. "Vanessa's lawyers are already spinning this," Grace reported, hanging up her phone. "They're claiming she was trying to protect the company from internal theft. Still trying to pin it on me." I laughed bitterly. "Even with all the evidence?" "She's desperate," Elijah said. "The FBI found offshore accounts we didn't even know about. She's facing serious prison time." My phone lit up with a text from Vanessa herself. "You think you've won. Tomorrow will be interesting. Hope you're ready for some family secrets to come out." Flynn read it over my shoulder and swore. "She's going to try something at dinner." "Let her," I said. "We've got one card left to play." Thea looked up from her laptop. "The media's going crazy with speculation. Dad's getting calls from every major business publication." "Which is exactly why tomorrow needs to be perfect," I insisted. "One last family Thanksgiving before everything changes." We spent hours preparing. Grace set up discreet recording devices, legal in our state with one-party consent. Elijah coordinated with the FBI agents who'd be parked outside. Flynn and Thea worked on seating arrangements to keep Vanessa isolated. Around midnight, another text came, this time from Dad. "Can you come over? Need to talk." I found him in his study, surrounded by old family photos. One showed Mom holding me as a baby. Thea and Flynn crowded around, all of us laughing. "I should have seen it," he said without looking up. "The signs were all there." "She fooled everyone, Dad." "Not you." He finally met my eyes. "You saw through her and I chose her over my own daughter." "Dad, let me finish. When your mother died, I was lost. Vanessa seemed like an anchor. She knew exactly what to say, exactly how to handle everything. I thought she was saving me. Saving the company. She manipulated you." "Yes." He picked up a photo of Mom. "Caroline would be so ashamed of me." "Mom would understand," I said softly. "And she'd want us to fix this. Together." He nodded, then pulled out a folder. "There's something you should see before tomorrow. Something about your mother's last wishes that Vanessa made me hide." As I read the documents, my hands started shaking. "Does anyone else know about this?" "Only Corey." It's why Vanessa needed him so badly. We have to tell Flynn and Thea. Tomorrow, he said. Let's tell everyone tomorrow. I left his house around 2 a.m., my mind racing. When I got home, I found Elijah waiting on my doorstep. Couldn't sleep, he explained. Kept thinking about tomorrow. Want to help me cook a turkey at 2 a.m.? He smiled. Just like old times. We worked in comfortable silence, preparing dishes for the next day. Around 4 a.m., as the turkey roasted, Elijah spoke up. Whatever happens tomorrow, you've already won. You know that, right? Have I? I looked at him. The company's in chaos, my father's devastated, and my stepmother's probably plotting revenge right now. But you've got your family back. The truth is out. That's what you wanted. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a group text from Grace. New development. Call ASAP. I put her on speaker. Her voice was tense. Vanessa just booked a private jet for tomorrow night. To a non-extradition country. She's planning to run, Elijah said. Not before Thanksgiving dinner, I replied. She's too proud. She'll want one last chance to hurt us all. The sun was rising as we finished cooking. In 12 hours, we'd all sit down for the most important dinner of our lives. I had no idea what Vanessa would try, but for the first time in 2 years, I wasn't afraid of her. Let her come. Let her try her worst. The truth was finally on my side. Thanksgiving Day arrived with a cold drizzle that matched the mood perfectly. I pulled up to my father's house at exactly 4 p.m., Elijah beside me with the turkey and recordings safely stowed in the trunk. FBI's in position, Grace texted. 3 cars, full surveillance. She makes a run for it, they'll know. The house looked exactly as it had 2 years ago, the last Thanksgiving before everything fell apart. Thea met us at the door, her face tight with tension. She's already here, she whispered, in the living room with Dad, acting like nothing's wrong. We could hear Vanessa's laugh floating down the hallway, that perfect, practiced sound that had fooled us all for so long. Is everything set? I asked quietly. Thea nodded. Flynn's got the documents ready. Grace's equipment is hidden. Dad knows his part. We walked into the living room, where Vanessa sat perched on the arm of Dad's chair like she owned it. She wore an expensive red dress and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Remington, darling. She stood, arms outstretched. I'm so glad we can put this unfortunate business behind us and celebrate as a family. Cut the act, Vanessa, Flynn said from the doorway. We all know about the private jet. Her smile flickered but held. Can't a woman have backup plans? Especially when she's being falsely accused by her own family. Dinner's ready, Dad announced, his voice strained. Let's move to the dining room. The table was set perfectly. Vanessa's influence still visible in every carefully placed fork and crystal glass. We took our seats, Dad at the head, Vanessa to his right, me directly across from her. Elijah and my siblings filled in the remaining spots. Shall we say grace? Vanessa suggested sweetly. Actually, I cut in, I think it's time we talked about Mom. The room went silent. Dad's hand shook as he reached for the folder hidden under his placemat. Now, darling, Vanessa started. Is this really the time? It's exactly the time, Dad interrupted. Caroline's last wishes need to be heard. What last wishes? Flynn asked. Dad opened the folder. Your mother's final amendment to her will, the one Vanessa convinced me to hide. Vanessa's perfect mask cracked. Tom, think about what you're doing. Mom left controlling interest in the company to us kids, I announced, jointly and immediately, not to Dad, not to be held in trust. The papers Vanessa had us sign, they were illegal. That's absurd, Vanessa snapped. Tom, tell them. It's true. Dad's voice was heavy. Caroline knew. She knew I might be vulnerable after she was gone. She wanted to protect the company, protect our children's inheritance. So, when Vanessa married Dad, Thea realized, she had no real power at all. Unless she got rid of me, I finished, discredited me, turned everyone against me. Vanessa stood suddenly, her chair scraping back. This is ridiculous. I won't sit here and listen to these lies. Sit down, Dad's voice cracked like a whip. There's more. Flynn pulled out his phone, playing a recording. Vanessa's voice discussing kickbacks with Pacific Ridge executives. Then another, her threatening Corey. And finally, her original plot to frame me, recorded by Corey himself. You really should be more careful who you trust, I told her, especially lawyers with guilty consciences. She laughed, but it was brittle now. You think these recordings change anything? I still have enough dirt on everyone in this room to... To what? Elijah asked. The FBI has your files. Your offshore accounts are frozen. That private jet you booked, grounded by federal order. Face it, Vanessa, I said quietly. It's over. She looked around the table, finding no allies. Then she smiled. A real smile this time, vicious and cold. You want to talk about family secrets? She turned to Dad. Tell them about the real reason their mother changed her will. About your gambling debts. About the woman in Seattle. We know, I cut her off. Dad told us everything this morning. The affairs, the debts, all of it. Mom knew too. That's why she protected us. But she also forgave him, Thea added. Which is more than you'll ever understand. Vanessa's face contorted. She reached for her water glass, but her hand knocked it over instead, sending water cascading across the pristine tablecloth. This isn't over, she hissed, standing again. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Actually, Grace said, walking in from the kitchen with 2 FBI agents. We do. And so do the federal prosecutors. Vanessa looked at the agents, then at the door, calculating. Don't, I warned. Running only makes it worse. She straightened her spine, smoothed her dress. I want my lawyer. As the agents led her away, Dad bowed his head. Some Thanksgiving dinner. Actually, Flynn said, I think it's exactly what we needed. A chance to clear the air, to be honest with each other, to be a family again, Thea added. I looked at the ruined table setting, the scattered papers, the empty chair where Vanessa had sat. So, I said, managing a small smile. Who wants turkey? The hours after Vanessa's arrest passed in a blur of federal agents, phone calls, and cold turkey sandwiches. Around midnight, the house finally emptied except for immediate family. We sat in the living room, exhausted but unable to sleep. The press is having a field day, Flynn said, scrolling through his phone. Stock's actually up in after-hours trading. Market likes that we caught the fraud early. Early? I couldn't help but laugh. It's been 2 years. Could have been worse, Grace said, packing up her surveillance equipment. You should see some of my other cases. Dad stood by the fireplace, staring at Mom's portrait. I need to make this right. All of it. You already started, Thea assured him. The truth's out. That's what matters. My phone buzzed, a text from Corey's lawyer. Client willing to testify. Full cooperation in exchange for leniency. Vanessa's not getting out of this one. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. We all tensed. It's just Elijah, Grace said, checking the security camera feed she'd installed. And he's brought pizza. Thought we could use a real dinner, Elijah said when we let him in, since the turkey got cold during all the excitement. As we gathered around the coffee table with pizza and what was left of the wine, Dad cleared his throat. There's something else we need to discuss. About the company. Flynn sat up straighter. The board wants an emergency meeting tomorrow. Yes. But this is about leadership. Dad looked at each of us. Your mother was right. It's time for the next generation to take over. Dad, you don't have to, I started. I do. He paused, struggling. I've been hiding from my mistakes behind Vanessa's efficiency, letting her take control because it was easier than facing what I'd done to this family. Thea moved to sit beside him. We all made mistakes. We all believed her. Not all of us, Flynn said, looking at me. Rem knew, and we didn't listen. Water under the bridge, I said, but Dad shook his head. No, we need to address this, starting with your position in the company. My heart skipped. What about it? The board wants you back, as CEO. The room went silent. Even Grace stopped packing. I can't, I stammered. You can, Flynn insisted. You're the only one who saw through Vanessa, the only one who fought for the truth. The shareholders will support it, Dad added, especially after today, but there's a condition. What condition? We do it as a family, all of us. He looked at Flynn and Thea. Your mother wanted you to lead together, each with your own strengths. Flynn in operations, Thea in development, you as CEO. A triumvirate, Elijah mused. Actually makes sense from a business perspective. My phone buzzed again, this time an email from the board. Subject line: Emergency meeting agenda, leadership transition. They're not waiting, I said, showing the others. Meeting's at 9 a.m. Then we better be ready, Flynn said. The press will want answers. They'll want more than answers, Grace warned. Vanessa's arrest is just the beginning. There'll be investigations, audits. Let them come, Thea said firmly. We have nothing to hide anymore. Dad stood up, walking to his desk. He returned with 3 envelopes. Your mother wrote these, one for each of you. Asked me to give them to you when you took over the company. His voice cracked. I should have done this years ago. With trembling hands, we each took our letters. Mine felt heavy, Mum's familiar handwriting spelling out my name. Read them later, Dad said softly. When you're ready. The grandfather clock struck 1, its chimes echoing through the house. In 8 hours, we'd face the board. In 24, the story would break worldwide. In a week, the trials would begin. Whatever happens, I said, looking at my family, we face it together this time. Together, they echoed. Grace finished packing and headed out with the last of her equipment. At the door, she turned back. For what it's worth, this is the best possible ending. Truth wins, family reunites, justice served. Is it really ending? I asked. She smiled. No, it's beginning. The hard part comes next. Rebuilding trust, running the company, dealing with the fallout. But you've got something Vanessa never had. What's that? People who actually care about each other, not just power. After she left, we stayed up talking, really talking, for the first time in years. About Mom, about our mistakes, about the future. The pizza got cold and the wine ran out, but nobody wanted to leave. Tomorrow would bring challenges, but tonight, in this room, we were just family again. And that felt like the biggest victory of all. My unopened letter sat in my pocket, waiting for the right moment. Mum's last words to me, preserved until I was ready to lead. Soon, but not yet. Right now, we had plans to make and bridges to rebuild. The morning sun streamed through the boardroom windows as I finished my presentation. 20 board members sat in stunned silence, processing everything they'd just learned about our family's new leadership structure. Any questions? I asked, standing confident despite my racing heart. Several. Barbara, our longest-serving board member, leaned forward. But first, I want to say what we're all thinking. Your mother would be proud. Beside me, Flynn squeezed my hand under the table. Thea wiped away a tear. The transition plan is solid, another board member said. But the media coverage of Vanessa's arrest is already being handled, I interrupted, nodding to our PR team waiting outside. Full transparency. We show how we caught the fraud, protected the company, and emerged stronger. Speaking of strength, Barbara said, the stock's up 12% since opening bell. Market loves a redemption story. The vote was unanimous. As the board members filed out, Dad pulled us aside. Before you start your new roles, he said, there's one more thing we need to do. He led us to Mom's old office, untouched since her death, even by Vanessa. Inside, everything was exactly as Mom had left it, down to the half-empty coffee mug on her desk. Read your letters, Dad said softly. She wrote them the week before. Well, just read them. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. My dearest Remington, if you're reading this, you've finally taken your rightful place at the company. I always knew you would, even when others doubted. Your strength isn't just in your business sense, it's in your heart, your ability to see truth when others are blinded by lies. Lead with that same heart. Trust your siblings. They'll challenge you, support you, keep you grounded. Together you're unstoppable. I've left something in my desk for you three to share. Bottom right drawer, behind the false panel. The combination is the day you all played hooky from school to go to the beach. Remember, I love you, my fierce, honest daughter. Mom. I looked up to see Thea and Flynn had finished their letters too. Without a word, I went to Mom's desk, entered the date, 4/16, and opened the hidden panel. Inside was a small box and another note. Share these equally, not for the company, for yourselves. The box contained 3 keys and a deed to our family's beach house, the one Vanessa had convinced Dad to sell, but apparently hadn't succeeded. She knew, Flynn whispered. She knew we'd need a place that was just ours. A knock at the door interrupted us. Elijah with an urgent update. Vanessa's talking, he said. Cutting deals. Named every conspirator, every scheme. Let her talk, I replied. We've nothing left to hide. There's more, he continued. Grace found offshore accounts we missed. Millions hidden away. Not hidden anymore, Thea said firmly. Every penny goes back to the company. Dad cleared his throat. I should go. This is your time now. Stay, I said. Please, we need your experience, Dad. Just maybe not your taste in wives. He laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from him in years. My phone buzzed. Grace sending photos of Vanessa in custody, looking nothing like the polished socialite who'd tormented us for years. The PR team's ready, Flynn reminded us. Time to face the press. Wait, I said, touching Mom's coffee mug. One last thing. I pulled out my phone and ordered 4 tickets to the beach house for the weekend. We'll need to work on the transition plan, Thea protested. The company's waited this long, I replied. It can wait 2 more days while we remember who we are as a family. Walking toward the press conference, I felt Mom's letter in my pocket, her keys in my hand, and her strength in my heart. Cameras flashed as we approached the podium together, not as CEO and executives, but as siblings, as family. Ready? Flynn whispered. I looked at my family. All of them. Even Dad standing proudly in the back, and Elijah giving me a thumbs up from beside Grace. Ready, I said, stepping up to the microphone. Time to tell our story. Because that's what this was really about. Not revenge, not power, not even justice. It was about truth, family, and the courage to fight for both. Vanessa had tried to write our ending, but she'd only managed to show us our real beginning. I smiled at the cameras, at my siblings, at our future. Good morning, I began. Let me tell you about Duncan Enterprises, about family, and about coming home. The cameras flashed, the reporters leaned in, and I told our truth, all of it, knowing that somewhere Mom was smiling. This wasn't an ending at all. It was us, finally writing our own story.